I'm Megan Guidry. I've been at LCS since August, and I teach calculus, physics, pre-calculus, and geometry.
So when would you say your Christian walk really began?
So I was raised in a household basically without religion. We didn't go to church. My parents didn't really practice anything in particular. It was a very moral household where there was a lot of emphasis on being a good person, but there was no God or Jesus or anything else spoken in the household. I went to public school up through 7th grade, and then in 8th grade got the opportunity to go to a private school, but it was still a private secular school. Around 10th grade, I started taking chemistry and physics, and that was when I started to realize that there was something else out there, that there was something bigger than us in the universe that created the universe, because I started seeing parallels between like atoms and galaxies and that sort of thing. And I realized like God started speaking into my heart. This didn't happen by accident. And so it was when I was in high school at a super secular school taught by a super secular teacher that I started to find God. And so, that was brewing inside of me. I moved on to college, went to Georgia Tech to study engineering. And right off the bat, when I first entered my freshman year, I made a new friend in biology. His name was Daniel. And he was the first person to ever invite me to church with him. And so I went. And it was really amazing what happened. Like in that day, it was literally one day, I realized the thing that was missing from what I was starting to have these inklings of belief with was Jesus. And that was when I was saved, thanks to Daniel inviting me to church. And so that was when I started my walk with Christ and to just really be a Christian.
So how has being a Christian affected your day-to-day life and your overall mentality?
Well, to start off with, my recognition of my need for a savior was a huge hit to the ego. And it forced me to recognize my lack of humility and just brought it down a big necessary step. I'd always been a really smart nerd, and I had to realize that I don't have all the answers, but there is a God who does, and that I just needed to trust him fully. I'll admit, sanctification didn't happen right away. I didn't really dive into my faith. I believed. I went to church on Sundays, went through all the motions, but it really wasn't until after my husband and I were married, we started having children and they started growing, that I realized that the questions were coming. And I would need to be able to explain to them what my faith is and then help to share that faith with them. And so that was really when I can pinpoint where the sanctification process began with me, where I started reading about what it really meant to be a Christian and what I really had committed myself to when I accepted Christ into my heart. And so it's been an education process, working through logically, sometimes giving over to the emotional side of things because that's not a strength of mine. But again, that humility helps me to overcome through Jesus the things that I am not naturally good at. It's also, I had the opportunity to start working at my children's school. They started going to a Christian school in Florida. And I worked in the front office for a year. And it was just amazing being in an environment where we openly talked about Jesus every day and we're sharing the gospel with one another and building each other up. And that has really helped with the process as well. A year into working in the front office, they asked me to move back to the classroom. I had taught before in public school, but they asked me to move to teaching. And that was not the timeline that I had planned. I had a plan for my life, but I realized that this was a time that God was calling me to obedience. And so I obeyed and I went to the classroom, and it has just enriched my life so much by doing what God has asked of me. So I have been working on that. The other thing that has changed is that now I have it in my heart to share the gospel with my family. I have a sister who is an atheist, my parents who are of still questionable religious beliefs, and I just want them to feel the peace and joy that I have with Jesus in my heart. And so I hope in the future to continue sharing that with them and to bring them to Christ as well.